The first step in the alternator replacement is to disconnect the negative battery terminal from the battery. Once that's done, take the time to remove a couple items from the top of the engine area to make access to the alternator easier. Remove 3 bolts and take off the plastic cover. Next, disconnect the 2 vacuum hoses. Now disconnect the sensor connection. Loosen a couple clamps to remove part of the air intake ductwork. Now you can get your hands and tools into the alternator area much easier. The next step is to use a tensioner tool to release the tension on the serpentine belt. Once the tension is released, just remove the belt from the alternator pulley. This is a great time to check for belt wear, and in most cases, we recommend replacing the belt while doing the alternator project since it's already off the vehicle and we have good access to reinstall it. Next up, remove the electrical connections to the alternator. In this case, the clip on one of the plugs is hard to see, so we use a mirror to get a better look at the tab to determine whether it's a push or pull clip to release the connector. Release the clip and remove the plug. Now disconnect the positive cable connected to the top rear of the alternator. Pull back the rubber boot covering the connection and remove the nut that connects the wire to the stud on the alternator connection. Remove the bottom mounting bolts from the alternator. Access here is a bit tight, but take your time and you'll do just fine. Put the bolts in a safe place so we can reuse them later. On the 2000 F150, there's a mounting plate on top. Just remove the bolts where the plate connects to the vehicle. Carefully remove the old alternator from the front of the engine, and we're halfway done. Take a few moments to compare the old alternator with the new one. Make sure the electrical connections are in the same spot on both alternators and all of the mounting holes match. In this case, we need to transfer that top mounting plate to the new alternator to reuse it. And transfer this little plastic connector cap from the old to the new one. Carefully put the new alternator in place. Go ahead and install the bolts on the top mounting bracket, but leave some play in them. That allows some room to wiggle the alternator to get the bottom mounting bolts into the holes. Make sure you're using the correct torque specs to ensure you don't over or under tighten the alternator mounting bolts. Go back and tighten the top bolts that we left loose on the bracket. Reconnect the electrical connection and the positive cable to the red terminal. Once the positive cable is installed, put the rubber boot back in place over the connection. With the new alternator installed, let's get that old belt out of there. It's a good thing we decided to replace this one. It actually split and would have failed in the near future. Replacing it now keeps us from redoing much of this work in the coming months. Before installing the new serpentine belt, it's important to get the proper routing diagram. Most of the time it's found right here under the hood. As you install the new belt, be patient with the routing of the belt and refer often to the routing diagram. Once you have the belt loosely routed correctly, use the tensioner tool on the tensioner pulley to release the tension. While holding the tensioner tool, use the other hand to finish routing the belt, ensuring that it's completely engaged with each pulley. Once the belt routing looks correct, slowly release the tension with the tool and check your work. Now, reinstall the intake ductwork and tighten the clamps. Reconnect the vacuum hoses and the sensor connector. Finally, reinstall the plastic cover and tighten the 3 bolts. Now, reinstall the negative battery terminal and start the truck. Check your voltage to the battery and ensure your alternator is charging properly, and you're done.
Think ahead. Think advance.